A lot of people think AI and automation is the key to everything, but they're actually not. In fact, in Elon's 5-step algorithm, automation is the last step. So in this video, I want to talk about what that 5-step algorithm is, how I built it into my own system, and how we can use it to focus on what really matters. I also want to talk about why automation is the last part in that process. Elon is known for his relentless pursuit of efficient execution, his systems thinking, and simplifying things down to first principles. And in this day and age, when there is a plethora of information, advice, and strategies to run, grow, and scale a business, it's easy to get distracted by noise and shiny object syndrome. And if you're like me who gets easily distracted, it's important to have a process or system in place to keep myself in check, especially as a solo operator. And so that's what this video is about. By the way, if you're new to my world, my name is Hazel June, and I've worked with online experts and thought leaders since 2018. I've redesigned online programs that generate over 7 figures, coach hundreds of business owners, and train thousands of people on leveraging AI. And in this channel, I usually talk about how to use AI to run and grow a solo business. Let's get into it. So you might be wondering, what the hell is the algorithm? Well, the algorithm is a book by John McNeil. He's the former president of Tesla. And in that book, he detailed Elon's 5-step operational framework that contributed to the hyper growth of Tesla and SpaceX. I actually first heard about it from one of my clients, and he said it's a must read. He even incorporated in his own process of setting goals and planning priorities for the business. And then a couple of weeks after, Alex Hermosi sent an email about the same book, and he made everyone that reports to him read it. And he said something in the email which I 100% agree. He said, in the age of AI, everyone is skipping to step 5, which is automate. And so they end up optimizing shit that didn't really matter. And so let's talk about that first. Now, to automate something means to set up a process or a system that can run on its own with little to no human effort, right? Essentially, you're taking a task that a person used to do manually and then handing it off to technology to do it for you, essentially. Sounds fantastic, right? But here's what most people usually do. They automate too early in the process. But if you think about it, building an AI system on top of a bloated process just makes the bloat run faster. When you automate a broken process, you don't actually fix the process, you scale the broken version. Think about it. When you first map out a process and execute it, I promise you, you're going to find leaks and gaps. You're going to find opportunities to make the process better or more efficient. You're going to realize that there are steps that just overcomplicate the whole thing, and you're going to discover unnecessary or broken parts of the whole system. But guess what? You'll only see that if you actually run them. For example, a few years ago, I was teaching freelancers how to build SOPs or standard operating procedures. And there was a part during the workshop where I had to review an existing SOP. And when we actually reviewed together the SOP, there were certain gaps in the process. The SOP, by the way, is about connecting to prospects on LinkedIn, which sounds simple, right? But in one of the steps, the instruction is to filter the leads before sending a connection request. But there was no criteria or checklist to help decide how to filter and how to know which leads to connect with or not. And so the question is, if someone has to implement that SOP or that process, how would they know how to filter the leads? Now, automating a process works the same way. If there are gaps in the process and you hand it off to AI to automate it, you're basically handing off an incomplete or broken system. But if you've done the process manually enough, it will be in a much better shape to automate. All right, now let me walk you through the actual 5 steps. So the first one, as you can see, is question every requirement, because most rules are just recommendations wearing a costume. So what you're going to do is you're going to look at every task, every rule, every constraint, every we have to do this or we should do this, and ask yourself where it came from. Like, is it really necessary? Is it required to get the job done? Second is to delete every possible step, not simplify, but to delete, eliminate, remove them if they're not necessary, if they're not required. There's actually a rule in the book where if you're not deleting at least 10% of the steps in the process, you're not questioning hard enough. And so the frame of mind is assuming that most steps are removable and unnecessary. Third, simplify what's left. So after deleting, removing, eliminating unnecessary steps, the next one is to simplify the remaining steps. So we're going to ask ourselves, how can we make each step as simple as possible? Meaning fewer decisions, fewer clicks, fewer people, fewer steps. For example, Tesla went from 300,000 possible car configurations down to 2 projects or 2 packages because the paradox of choice was actually killing decisions. Now, the fourth step is to accelerate cycle time. And so in this step, you essentially look at what the bottleneck, where the constraint is, and then find ways to actually remove it. Finally, automate last. So again, this is where most people start. They automate first, right? Like what I've mentioned earlier, you want to make sure that you run the process or the system manually first so that you would know what to automate, so that you have a better idea on what portions or sections or the final version of the process that you can automate. So those are the 5 steps. And the reason this order matters is because if you flip it and start with automation, you're essentially spending resources on hardening bloat. And that's exactly what some people are actually doing with AI right now. They're building AI solutions or AI systems because it looks cool or because everyone else is doing it. And then they automate it without ever asking if the workflow needs to exist in the first place. When I first heard about the algorithm, I added it as a note in my Scratchpad, and it's in my later list of AI tools to build. Then the Hormozi email came, and so that put the algorithm back on top of my head. And it's around the same time I needed to recalibrate. So I spent a Sunday evening for a mid-year reset. And now I know it's a little bit late for that, but I still call it a mid-year reset. So essentially, I sat down and thought about my goals, like my 5-year vision, my 1-year goal, and then I mapped out a 90-day implementation plan with a task and activities and priorities. That way, I would know exactly what I need to focus on for the remainder of the year. And then once I have the list of things to do and what I want to focus on, I ran through the algorithm to cut what's needed and simplify the list so that I can really focus on what really matters. And I found that it's a great exercise because it brought up some really good points that I missed during my planning session. Okay, so let me walk you through the whole thing, right? So as you can see here, I mentioned that I just finished running through my planning session, which is the mid-year reset that I told you about. And then I asked it to run my whole thing, my whole planning session thing through Elon's Algo Pass. And so if you notice, I dropped everything to Claude, right? And then it ran Elon's pass. And as you can see, for every priority, it ran through the 5 steps, like why it exists, delete, simplify, accelerate, automate. And you're going to see the verdict. So like for the first priority, which is partnerships, it was modified. And it says that I can keep the weekly volume, but batch it into 2 sessions and templatize. For priority 2, which is outreach, again, it says cut. It says cut. I don't need it, but it's suggested to replace a 2-week outreach test first because I'm not doing outreach right now. And so that's the reason why it deleted it. And so if you notice where it says delete, it says yes, provisionally, because it's a new channel. So it's not something that I'm currently doing. I haven't done outreach in the past few months. And so that's the reason why it got deleted. But it did recommend a 2-week test, which is great. And then priorities my newsletter. And again, if you look at it, it run through the 5 steps. Why it exists: delete, simplify, accelerate, automate. And the verdict: modify it. And you can see why here. And there's a bunch of other priorities that it run through, right? And so net about a third of my original plan was actually cut after going through this 5-step pass on all of the priorities I listed. Now, after running it manually, as you've seen earlier, I actually asked Claude to add it to my quarterly business planning session. That way, whenever I do my quarterly business planning, it's already part of the system, which is great. Now, soon after adding the algorithm to my quarterly business planning thing, I realized that I could actually use the algorithm to help me with actions, decisions, and priorities that I'm working on outside of my quarterly review and planning session. And so I decided to build a Claude skill that I can run every time I need it. So here's how. First, I got a PDF of the book. As you can see, this is Notebook LM, or what they call Gemini Notebook now. And this specific notebook contains a bunch of different books that I have collected over the years, right? And one of which is the algorithm. And so what I did was I unselect everything and just select the algorithm. And I asked Notebook LM to generate a summary of the whole book for me. And then I copied everything, paste that into Claude, and asked Claude to actually create the skill for me. And so now all these operating instructions that Notebook LM, or Gemini Notebook now, has extracted from the book has been used to train my Claude skill, which in my workspace is basically a command that I can run on demand. And so as you can see, that command is called Elon, and it's got 8 faces. And so now I can point it at a decision, a launch sequence, an SOP, a task list, a client project, whatever the case may be. And then this slash command that Claude has built for me, I can use that to run through whatever it is I'm working on. By the way, if you want to get a copy of the Claude Scale version of the slash Elon command that I have built within Claude Code, sign up for my free resources. There is a link in the description below. And when you do sign up, you don't just get the Claude skill that I talked about in this video. You're also going to have access to a growing number of tools, templates, and tutorials that I share here in my YouTube videos. Now, last thing, here's the reason why I turned the 5-step algorithm into a skill or a slash command, because I know myself and I know the failure mode that I fall into over and over again, which is doing too much at the same time. And if I'm not careful, I also fall into shiny object syndrome. And so this thing, the 5-step algorithm, is the closest tool that I've found to a forced focus mechanism. So here's my plan going forward on how I want to use this tool. I'm going to run slash Elon, the slash command that I've built, before I commit to anything with a real cost. So a new offer, a launch sequence, a client project, whatever the case may be, right? Because I know that I'm great at planning and outlining the steps, but sometimes I would overcomplicate it or add things I thought was productive in the process, but I don't actually need. And so I know that I'm not super good at deleting stuff yet. And so then the tool, the 5-step algorithm, this tool exists now to help me become a better operator. And every time I use it, the plan gets sharper as well. So again, the 5 steps: question first, delete second, simplify third, accelerate fourth, and automate last. And so if you want to help building AI systems like this, like skills, workflows, planning commands, whatever your business actually needs, and you want them trained on how you already work, not on some generic template, just book a call using the link in the description below. And let's talk about how that could look like for your specific business. And as always, if this is your kind of thing and you find this video valuable, hit like, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell. I create videos on how solo experts and operators can leverage AI to run and grow their business. See you in the next one. Ciao.